Most commanders who sailed a cog into battle never came home. Not because the ship was weak, not because their men were cowards, because they did not know Vlandian naval tactics. So today, we make you a true Vlandian mariner, as I reveal the unknown cog ship tactics to help you win battles with only cogs on the Calradian waves. Welcome back, boat and blade mariners. Today we have another video for you covering cog ship naval tactics. How do you beat the enemy when you're starting off in a Vlandian navy? You don't have round ships yet. You don't have the Vlandian flagship yet. How are you gonna beat them? In style. Obviously. Look at this. The drip is insane. My guy looking like a Vlandian pirate. We want to make sure we're using these Vlandian cog ships to the best of their ability. A lot of people think the cog ship isn't the most effective ship in battle, but as a medium-sized ship, the cog ship is a great ship in battle, especially if you're just starting off or even in mid-game. I would even use cog ships in late game if I had to, but I have the round ships, so it's unnecessary. But you could definitely win battles even against quite larger ships if you use your cog ships properly. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm going to be having more videos out soon about Vlandian naval tactics. We're also going to be covering other factions. I'm going to be posting multiple times a week, so keep it tuned and show you what it is. But as you can see here, I'm employing my first tactic. We want to pass them at high speed while shooting at them, so that when we pass, our stern is facing them, which is the back of the ship, and we're shooting from the platform the whole time. This is a skirmishing tactic. The next tactic is more defensive. There's the large platform on the back of these cog ships. That's really where a lot of the advantage of cog ships come in, is when it comes to battle. This is just the advantage of most Vlandian ships, that they have these platforms. It's like you're on the wall of a siege, in a siege. You know, you're up on the wall shooting down on the enemy. You know, everyone knows it's easier to beat larger armies when you're defending in a siege. That's just basic logic, and when you play Bannerlord long enough or mount&blade long enough, you know this, right? So why am I putting my cog ships here in different directions when I'm linking them together? Because you want to make a little fortress. The thing is, if you put your cog ships facing the same direction, that platform isn't going to be as effective sometimes in some cases, because your platform is blocking the view of the other platform. So if you have a guy on one platform and you're trying to shoot in that direction, and there's another cog ship there with a platform, you're not gonna be able to see. So now in this tactic, we got enemies all around us. We want a guy shooting in all directions. Unfortunately, I do have a trade cog here. The other cog is more of a battle cog. So the platform on the trade cog is smaller and not as defensible, and the AI units don't tend to actually use it as much. There is a crossbowman on the top there, and he is using it. That ship also might be lacking in crossbowmen. However, the principle is the same. If you line up a bunch of cog ships and you attach them to make a little boat fort, you're gonna have a problem if your guys can't shoot the enemy because they're perpendicular to you, because the other platform is blocking the view of the platform next to it. So if you put the cog ships in opposite directions, now it's like you have two towers of your fort and you're shooting in all directions, and you're able to much better effectively take out the enemy this way. So I would really take into account what the position of the enemy is and what the position of your cog ships are. If you want to do a fort style siege-like defense on the ocean with your cog ships, which is a huge advantage of the Vlandian ships. It's not the only tactic. However, I highly recommend this, especially when there's ships in many directions and you want to make sure that your crossbowmen are able to fire and hit the enemy. So, we're getting rid of these pirates. It ended up in a melee. I don't have as many crossbowmen in this game. I don't have as many archers in general in this game as I do in later gameplay. But the principle is the same, and if you have a lot of Nata, Vlandian Nata on your cog ships, you can do battle like this with just the cog ships. With the raised platforms, you could even fight larger ships. There's a lot of medium-sized ships in the game that just have no height advantage. I mean, they might have other advantages, you know, like the Nord ships move very fast, for instance. They have other advantages. However, that raised platform, allows the cog ships to fight much larger ships in battle when they have archers and they're able to fire at a more even level or even higher level in height to the enemy. Like if you have for instance, I don't know, 8 cog ships and you're fighting Imperial Dromon, if you have enough crossbowmen, this could actually work with the platform advantage. 8 cog ships is quite a lot, given that that's like the maximum capacity of ships you can have in a battle. You can have more in your army, but in the battle, and you can only there's only 8 slots, so we've won the battle. On to the next tactic. So these Imperials outnumber us, and they also have medium-sized ships. It's somewhat even, but as you can see here, sometimes the game seems to think that you have the advantage. Maybe this is because of troop quality, maybe this is because the type of ship you have, but they technically do outnumber us in this instance. And they have also some smaller Imperial ships. I think these are trade ships, if I'm not mistaken. So we're gonna also attach these 2 cog ships. This time then we have no trade cogs, we're just using only our cog ships, which are more fit for battle. And we are in the same direction. Now, being in the same direction isn't always wrong, but as you can see here, it would be harder to shoot to the side. Now they're a little bit, you know, they're not perfectly aligned, which actually is advantageous because that allows you to have your guys shooting in that direction without the other platform impeding your fire. But in this battle, we have them facing the same direction. However, our ships are turning, and what that means is that by the time the enemy reaches us, and by the time they're in range, the back of our ships will be facing them. Now, this seems a bit illogical, but if you think about it, these platforms are basically just like a siege wall. And do you want the wall facing the enemy, or do you want them on the inside of the wall? You want the outside of the wall facing them. So here we have the outside of the wall facing the enemy, and it's going to work just like in a siege. Our crossbowmen are going to lay down fire from up top, and they're not going to have an easy time boarding us because they're essentially facing a wooden wall. They're facing our ship's outside platform. Now they're boarding us now because they have more ships than us. They do outnumber us because we're laying down fire, which is really causing them some problems. They're not even able to get ready to board us because they have to be defensive. They're keeping their shields up as we're firing into them, and we're getting kills. We're getting all the kills so far. Even if we didn't kill as many as we hoped when they were coming to board us, they had to keep their shields up the whole time to avoid. We're getting those kills with crossbowmen, as you can see. The archers are getting kills still. Now a lot of them are engaging. Unfortunately, the AI during boarding, they are going to primarily attack at the. They're going to address the boarding problem, which is the good thing about Vlandian crossbowmen is that they do have shields, and they work very well as melee, especially on ships. So they're able to do both. But it would be nice if some of them, more of their crossbowmen, would stay on the platform, the perch of the ship, of the Vlandian ship. Now they're trying to escape, but they can't escape because we're still firing at them. So, and the guys on the other side, we've taken them out already. If you decide to use cog ships in battle, consider having the back of your ship facing the enemy, because it's like a wall. It's just like in a siege, and these ships are like little forts. But if you just have the cog ship facing directly, it's not really operating as a wall. They operate more like towers. So in the last tactic, we're using them more as towers by having them facing in opposite directions. And in this tactic, it's more like a wall that the enemy has to go around. And one got stuck in between. This is pretty common when you have the back facing the enemy, and they typically have more than one ship. Typically, one of their ships or two can get stuck, and that could be because they get sandwiched between their own ship and our ship, or they get sandwiched between both of our ships. As you can see here in this battle, this pirate ship of Archery pirates, the Corsairs, they're stuck between our two ships as our ships are facing them, and they're getting slaughtered just like in a siege by our crossbowmen. They can't even board us from this position. Now one of our crossbowmen fell into actually I think that's my brother Nogan. He fell into the enemy ship from the top. That's why they were able to kill him, unfortunately. Or maybe he's not dead. But as you can see here, this is just like, it's just a slaughter. It's just like in a siege. They're stuck on the outside. Their other ships are going around. They get trapped between your two ships, or they can get trapped between their own ship and your ship. And you're just shooting down from above, and your guys are just. And now, as you can see, they've left the other platform in order to defend against the boarding. And now these other guys are trying to also board. They've since the fire has they're receiving less crossbow bolts fire. They're receiving less fire from our crossbow bolts. So they got an advantage to finally attack, but they won't be successful then. We've been shooting at them and they've been held back and getting slaughtered, so they're weak already, and we're just gonna finish them off in the melee, just like in a siege. You know, when they finally get over the wall and you've been shooting at them the whole time, they're gonna get just chopped down. So that's how you should be using the cogs in battle. You should be having them face the enemy. If you want to use them like a wall, you should be face the enemy from actually really showing the enemy its back, the back of the ship. And if you want to use the ships like platforms as towers, you should have them facing opposite directions. So you should have the stern of the ship facing the enemy when you want to use it as a wall, and have the sterns of the ship in opposite directions if you want to use it as towers, if you want to use the platforms as towers. Those are the main tactics when you're starting off with cog ships, when you only have a few cog ships. Of course, when you're in larger battles, maybe you have finally round ships, and then the cog ships can be skirmishing, because you can just put pretty much all of your crossbowmen into the cog ships and have them skirmish on the sides and sort of distract the enemy, fighting from a distance by firing, but like maneuvering fast so that they don't get boarded. And then you can have your main flagship firing fire pods into the enemy, facing them and making sure that the enemy's taking heavy damage. And then have most of your melee guys on that ship, because you don't need crossbowmen to fire the ballista. And then once you want to get into a melee, you can bring the flagship forward and then flank with the skirmishing crossbow men on the cog ship. This is another tactic. I'll have another video where I show this to make it more clear when you have cog ships and a round ship as your flagship. And then I'll show also tactic videos where you have only round ships. So we'll have all that in the future. Like and subscribe so you can see more content like this. We're probably the only channel that's covering actual naval tactics in Warsails. A lot of other channels just cover game mechanics. So follow Boat and Blade and stay tuned.